Hi, Chris today, and I'm going to talk about my solar charger controller today. And a lot of people have asked some questions about solar, especially about the load feature. I don't know if I can get that right there. I don't know if you can see it, but it does say load in there. Alright, the load feature can be used for a lot of things. It pulls directly from your solar panels. Okay. I have four 100-watt solar panels. I have 30 amp solar charger controller. I bought mine from EcoWorthy along with my solar panels. And what I did was I hooked up a cigarette lighter to my load part on my charger controller. Most people would hook something like this up. This is a little adapter, USB adapter, I bought at my local dollar store. And let's plug this in. Most people would charge something like this. They say it's good for cell phones, things like that. This is an old little MP3 player, little Samsung. Only has like a gig of space on it. Today, I'm going to put this through the test, whether it can actually carry anything through your load. A lot of people are asking, I read on blogs and different places where they're asking about load. Well, today, I'm going to put this to the test for you. Alright. I have my 1000 watt, 1100 watt DC-AC power bright inverter hooked up to a 15 amp cigarette lighter. Now, if you're going to carry anything heavy, do not use a cigarette lighter, one of these male plugs. These are only 15 amp. If you're going to carry anything really heavy, wire your inverter straight to your batteries. Alright? Now I'm going to plug this in. And this is coming straight from my solar panels. And if you do actually set something like this up, always make sure you put an inline fuse. Now I only have a 10 amp fuse here. I will be changing that out in a little bit to check something else, to see if something else a little bit heavier can carry straight from my solar. I've never actually tried to run anything straight from the load other than little petty stuff. I did have my laptop plugged into this at one time, so yes, my laptop would carry off this. Now this is 1100 watt, 2200 peak. Now I'm just going to plug this fan in and see if this will carry straight from the load. Alright. Now this is powering straight from my solar panels. This is a Lasco fan that we purchased at Walmart. It circulates back and forth. Has 3 fan settings. It's a little bit dirty, but yeah, it's a pretty decent sized fan. And if you look at my charger, not charger, but my power inverter here, volts, and there's your watts. So apparently, now I'm going to turn this off, and if you have a smaller inverter, turn that off. I would say you could probably run pretty much up to a 750 watt inverter off of your solar directly. Remember, always have you an inline fuse. Always. It doesn't matter if it's basically on your inverter or anything else. Make sure you have an inline fuse. I did purchase a cigarette lighter. I'm not exactly sure if this would actually turn on this cigarette lighter. I mean, a cigarette lighter pulls massive amounts. Oh, I forgot to switch these out. My cigarette lighter for this is in the house. So, this isn't the lighter that goes in here. So, anyway, I'm going to bring something else out. I'm going to clean this up because I don't want all this stuff out. So your load straight from your charger controller will run an 1100 watt inverter. I have a 30 amp charger controller. And I did buy everything of mine, the solar charger controller and all 4 solar panels from EcoWorthy off eBay. Originally I purchased 3 100-watt panels that came with this charger controller. Then we bought an extra one, and it came with a 15 amp charger controller that is still in the box. So if you're going to do something like this, make sure your charger controller is heavy enough to carry it. 15 amps, I would not even attempt this on, especially pulling it through my power inverter. So let me clean this up, put the fan back in the house, and let me grab something else. I also have to grab another fuse, possibly, to see if something else will run directly off the panels. Alright, I shall be back in just a second. Okay, what we have is a Schumacher 12 volt coffee pot. Now, this has an inline fuse of 20 amps. I pulled out the 10 amp fuse. I put a 15 amp fuse, which I probably should have put a 20. And it's on. Now, these DC coffee pots take forever to make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this off, come back in a little while, and check on this. Alright. Okay, as you can see, it is working. I don't know if you can see that or not. Now this is really high draw. This is straight out of the box. This is a brand new coffee pot, coffee maker. Now I am running that straight from my load on my solar charger controller. Like I said, I have a 30 amp. Right now I have a 15 amp inline fuse, automotive fuse. And it's plugged in to a car cigarette lighter that I wired up. If you're going to do this, make sure your cigarette lighter has plenty of electrical tape around it. Make sure all your wires are connected and taped up. You do not want it hitting something and maybe shorting out. And like I say, these DC coffee pots do take a little while to make. I did use filtered water on this. In fact, we have never actually made coffee in this, so like I say, it is brand new. Now, if you look at the paper that came with it, it says this coffee maker draws more than 9 amps during operation. So make sure the circuit you're using is rated for at least this much. The power cord has a 20 amp inline fuse. It did come with an extra fuse. And like I say, there are a lot of people online, especially YouTube, saying the only thing you can charge, basically run off your load is maybe charging small things. Well, this is a 9 amp coffee pot running straight from my solar panels. And like I said, I have 4 100-watt solar panels. I used to have my batteries over there, and now, well, they're over here. And I have them in a plastic toolbox. The wires are going through this side from the charger controller. On the other side, I have some holes drilled so any fumes or poison can escape the other side. And of course, I have this little box, this little toolbox that I purchased from Walmart. It was like $3-4. It's Hyper Tough 12.5 inch toolbox, and I have it mounted, screwed and siliconed on a piece of plywood. Now I have some small holes in the bottom, and the reason I did that, even on the front cover, I have some little holes, little bitty holes in the front. The reason I did that, I wanted it to make sure it got air so it could breathe. You can see it is working. and it's definitely hot. So if you're wanting to know what your charger controller can actually do, this is running a 9 amp coffee pot straight off the solar panels. What your load does is, when your load's hooked up, it disconnects the power going to the battery, so make sure your batteries are full and topped off before you just run a load, and it sends all the power through the load. Some people have said if you don't have enough power, it'll actually pull it from the batteries. I'm not sure about that. It may or may not, but for this to run, like I said, I have a 15 amp fuse and a cigarette lighter, and it's just plugged straight in. If you're going to use something like this, keep extra fuses handy, and make sure you change your fuses out. This is really important. Make sure you change your fuses out for the either appliance like a coffee pot or whatever you're charging. I mean, if you're charging a cell phone, something like that takes 5 amps max, you need to have a 5 amp fuse in that fuse holder. I mean, you don't want a 25 amp fuse in there. If you're just charging something or running something that only takes a couple amps or an amp and a half, you can get smaller fuses than 5. But for something larger, throw a little bit bigger fuse in there. I have a feeling if I would have thrown a little bit bigger fuse in there, it'd be going a little bit faster. Like I say, these DC fuse coffee pots do not run very fast. They are 12 volt. So anyway, I just wanted you to see what load is on a solar charger controller. Most people will not tell you. They will not show you. There was one guy on YouTube was talking about his solar. He's in a van, and he was trying to run something off of a 700 watt inverter, and it was like a 900 watt microwave or something like that. And he's like, well, this isn't working. This doesn't work right. Solar just doesn't work. Well, if your inverter is 700 watts and whatever you're trying to run is 900, of course it won't work. You have to make sure you have a big enough DC-AC inverter if you're going to be running stuff in your home. I have 2 dual cycle marine batteries from Walmart. They're $120 a piece. I did make all my own cables to hook it up with. I have a large inverter plus the one you saw. I have those in another video talking about my inverters and about solar. So if you're thinking about getting solar, solar is great in summer. Spring is alright. Fall it's okay. Winter it kind of stinks. But you can absolutely run a coffee pot off of solar. I mean, this is a 12 volt pot running straight off the solar panels, off the load. So here's my panels again. Anyway, I just wanted you to see what the load can actually do. It depends on how big a charger controller you have. Now, like I said, I do have a 15 amp charger controller. I'm not going to hook that up because you actually have to cut the wires and take the terminal ends off and just slide up there and it screws down. And a 15 amp charger controller will not handle, literally not handle all 4 of my solar panels. I would actually have to disconnect at least two of them, maybe even 3, to handle that 15 amp charger controller. And like I said, when we purchased one solar panel, we purchased this in a set of 3 with the 30 amp controller that I have now, and then an extra one that just to hook up an extra one, and it came with a 15 amp. So if you have a big enough charger controller, I'd say 30 amp is plenty big for most people. And you can see it's definitely hot. I can barely touch it. Like I say, this will probably take 40 minutes to make. DC runs extremely slow, especially a high draw thing like a coffee pot. but it's definitely doable. And don't just listen to people saying all you can plug in up there on that load is, maybe a little fan that runs off a 12 volt, or, you know, maybe plug in, something to charge off a USB charger. That's 100% incorrect. If you have at least 3 to 400 watts in solar and a 30 amp charger controller, I mean, you can see it is making water, heating the water, and this is directly from my solar panels. So don't let anyone tell you you can't do this. If you're really worried about something, if you'd like to try it, always put an inline fuse, and that way if something blows, hopefully it blows the fuse and not your charger controller. I always tell people, no matter what you do, put a fuse on it. You can see the coffee pot's still going. And the reason I'm doing this outside is this little camera really stinks in the house. So hopefully with me doing this outside, it gets a better picture. I'd say since I've been out here, the water's probably about to here, somewhere up in there. You can see it's never been used. And I just shut the lid. I didn't even close it tight. I just shut it so the water will go through. But do not let people tell you that your load cannot carry a load. It depends on your charger controller. Some come with a load setting, some don't. Mine is a decent sized charger controller. And the other one I have is, I don't know, maybe a third of this size, maybe. Like I said, I bought mine from EcoWorthy off of eBay. They're probably one of the cheapest places. If you recall my other video, if you watched it, like I said, my batteries were here. And what I did was, I went ahead and just ran a line down, across, over, and up. Now, if you're going to have your wires down on the ground or close to the ground and you have to like weed eat or mow, put them in some kind of protector or bury them. Put them in a pipe, something. Keep them off the ground. You don't want tripping over them. You don't want somebody cutting into them. And like I say, this, by their own paperwork, pulls at least, it says, let me read this again. Make sure the circuit you are using, I don't know if you can see that, draws more than this, this draws more than 9 amps. Make sure the circuit you are using is rated for this much current. And it does have a 20 amp fuse. This is a Schumacher 12 volt coffee pot. So make sure you have plenty of fuses, fuse holder, 1 or 2. If you have extra batteries laying around or anything else, it's always good to have an extra fuse holder. Right now my batteries are 100% charged, and you can see it's going. I don't know if you can see, there you go, the water level. And yes, this is extremely hot. I did not fill this up. Like I said, it is, well, we bought it 3 years ago. We paid like $25 for it, and we've never had a chance to use it. So I figured I'd check it out here and show you exactly what your solar can do. Don't just listen to people. You're actually seeing this with your own eyes. And it's plugged straight in to a regular car cigarette lighter that I bought at my local AutoZone. I bought this little fuse holder at Walmart. Let's get Midnight in here. Midnight. He's over there playing with a bug. He's always chasing something. So you can actually see what this does. If your charger controller has a load on it, even a 15 amp charger controller will carry certain things off of load. I'd say 10 amps maybe off a 15 amp charger controller. This is a 30 amp if possible. If you can get at least 3 solar panels, make sure you have a 30 amp. It's your basic average size. Like I said, I got mine from EcoWorthy. I do believe they're like Japanese or Chinese panels. I think this is Chinese or Japanese. I don't care. It works. My charger controller has been in this box outside for well over a year now. It is working perfectly fine. Just make sure if you keep it outside, keep it out of the weather, the rain. That's why it's in this box. Make sure you have holes in it, so air can get up there and it can breathe. If water gets up in here somehow, then the water's going to run down and actually run out these holes. Make sure all your lines where you put them together are tight, crimped extremely tight. And I just have mine crimped. They're not soldered. Like I said, I mean, you can see now it's going pretty good. So, like I said, this is drawing at least 9 amps right now, just running, and that's straight off my solar. So you can definitely run certain things off solar. Off of your load side, your load setting, if your solar charger controller comes with load, use it. I have run my laptop off of this. I have ran and charged my girlfriend's tablet before she got a virus and it fried. I've charged my little MP3 player. As you just saw a little while ago, I hooked up a DC-AC inverter to it. If you're going to use a DC-AC inverter on your load, I would go no higher than a 750 watt, and I would still have a fuse on it. No matter what, you want a fuse on everything when it comes to solar. So there you go. I mean, I hope this answers questions. Your load is there to pull power straight from your solar panels. Yes, you can run decent sized things and decent draw stuff off of your load. Like I said, I plugged in my inverter, ran a fan off of it. You saw that in this video. I have to apologize for the length of this video. I really hope the quality is decent. But this little cheap camcorder thing I bought from Walmart, I don't expect it. So, anyway, like I said, always make sure you have extra fuses. Make sure you tape everything up, because you don't want the positive off of this hitting. I have a metal. I want this thing hitting. So, but I would recommend using a little bit thicker cable if you can on this, because it does get warm, especially on this. On most other things it didn't, but on this it's definitely getting warm. But you can tell that it's going pretty good, and I hope this didn't kick off. So there you go. Your load is there for extra power. Use it on small things, or like an emergency, like you need water or something like that. It's there for you. If your solar charger controller doesn't come with load, then just hook everything up, your inverter to your batteries. Load comes in really handy if, say, your inverter goes out. You can still power some things from your load if you have DC appliances or something that doesn't take a lot of power. Your laptop. If your inverter goes out, anything that has to take power is, well, not going to work. you know, there you go. That's about all the water I put in there. You can hear it. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of idea what you can and can't do with your solar charger controller. Like I said, if you want to do something like this, carry something that, you know, heavy like this, because this pulls a lot of amps. Get at least 3 100-watt panels and a 30 amp charger controller. Now, I don't get paid by anybody. I'm not getting benefit from saying the company that I bought my stuff from, but you know, I do like this charger controller. I like the way it's set up. I like, you know, how it hooks up. Everything twists on. It's really easy. You don't really have to have a screwdriver. Now, I did crank everything down with a pair of pliers to make sure everything's tight. And there we go. Now I'm going to turn this off. That's hot. Oh yeah, that would definitely make some hot coffee. I don't know if you can see the steam down there or not. Alright. And like I say, the plug's going to be warm. I'm going to pull that out. Now, what I'm going to do is, here's actually the cigarette lighter part that came with this. Wow, that's not wanting to stay in. So let me hold that in. Now remember, all this is coming straight from the solar panels. Okay, that's hot.
A friend of mine is moving from Vermont.
About that, my neighbor came out. He's a real good guy. I mean, this old lady are good people. Now, I put the end in, back in. There we go. The plug was already hot, so I didn't want to stay in. I have never tried to actually use a cigarette lighter, per se, on this. Straight from the solar charger controller. I have no clue what it's going to do. I have no clue if it's going to heat up or not. Like I said, I've never tried this. In fact, I don't even know if the cigarette lighter is actually any good. And like I said, sorry about that. He came out, was talking to me. But make sure if you do this, you have a fuse. Make sure if you hook up an inverter, make sure it's a small inverter, you know, just to run small things straight off your load. You don't want a 5,000 watt inverter running off of, you know, a wire this size. It's just not smart. But other things that are made for DC, like this coffee pot, a lot of things you can actually run off your load. Some chest freezers, chest fridges that you can buy that are really expensive, they can actually run off the load because they don't draw that much in amps. But as far as anything else, you know, use your best judgment. But now you know that something with a high draw capacity, this says at least 9 amps. At least it says draws more than 9 amps during operation. So that's 9 amps coming straight from your solar panels. Make sure you have extra fuses. And like I said, do not let people tell you you can't run certain things off your load. It's getting a little warm, so it may pop out and it may not. Ooh, yeah, that's getting warm. So now I'm just going to plug this in and not push it in all the way. And I'm just going to shut everything. And there you go. I apologize for the length of the video here. I have to splice it all together and I'll upload it. But now you can actually see what solar can actually do as far as a charger controller and as far as some solar panels. if you're going to do this, like I said, make sure you have enough panels. I'd say at least 3 of them. If you're going to run heavier stuff off of your load, you need at least 3. Each one of these panels probably puts out about 5 amps, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depends on where they're sitting, time of day, sun. So you figure 15 amps, 3 of them, 20 would be 4. So that's quite a bit of power coming straight out of your solar panels. Alright, like I said, I apologize for the length of this video. Hopefully this helps you out some. Let's get Midnight in here one more time. He's over there messing around. Where is he? He's over there behind the bush. Midnight. You dead kitty, you. Oh, dead kitty. Yeah, he's such a dead kitty. Unless he wants to be a pain, then he's a pain in the butt kitty. There he goes. Alright. Hopefully I got everything in here in this video so I don't have to redo it. And this, once again, tells you what you can run off of a load on your solar charger controller. Alright, everyone have a nice day.